we are going to hand over to another amazing person who stood firm with massive amount. He never took the knee. He never put that armband on. And screw you, Sky. Yeah. Screw you, Sky, because we've got him here. Put your hands together for the amazing Matt Tissier.
They've just said about half of what I was going to say. Screw you, Sky. No, thank you very much for inviting me again back to Hope, Sussex. It's an amazing place. It really is. I love coming in here. And for all those people out there who look at people like me and you guys out there and call us conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat wearers, if they actually could come into this room and feel what I felt when I walk into this room, they would change their mind completely, because what I feel in this room is part of a tribe. It really is. I feel such positive energy when I come into rooms like this because of people like you who have an open mind and who have loving hearts and have the right intentions for humanity. So thank you very much for all coming and supporting me tonight and being here. Thank you. It has been an interesting 5 years. Don't really know where that time's gone. So much has happened, and it's really difficult to try and put it into a chronological order. I don't know if you found that in the last few years. You go, well, what year did that happen? And you go, I can't remember. Just brain is frazzled from what's happened, and time's gone so fast. But yes, March 2020 was definitely a date in life when my world changed immeasurably. I suddenly saw the veil lifted from what was really going on in this world. I was, I'm not too proud to admit, I had my head stuck in the sand and head up my arse when it came to some of the stuff that we were being told in the news. And really, I think I've probably got a lot to thank this pandemic for, quite frankly, because my life now is so much happier than what it was. I'm not working in the mainstream media, which is an absolute blessing, I can tell you. So that's been a real bonus, and it was tough in 2020 because I had times when my family thought I was going mad. I'm sure we've all experienced that little phenomenon. And I don't know who was here last year when I spoke. I think I might have spoken about it last year when at the end of 2020, I think it was, I was called to a crisis family Zoom meeting. Anyone else had one of them? Yeah, that was interesting. And it was an odd time. It really was. My family back in Guernsey thought I was going a bit mental. I wasn't going to take any vaccines because I knew that there was no way they could know what any of the side effects were long term or medium term, quite frankly. So it's quite funny. For the first period when the vaccine came out, and I was adamant I wasn't going to take it, and I would go to great lengths to tell people I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I had all my vaccines as a child. How can I be an anti-vaxxer? It's just this one that I don't want. And so I spent all this time going, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. And then I actually realised, actually, they're all shit, and I am an anti-vaxxer. So I'm sure that's a journey that quite a few of us may have been on. So yeah, I spent that time defending it, and now I just go, fuck it, I am. So get on with it. And if you want to call me a tinfoil hat wearer, yeah, I'm one of them as well. Because the great thing about wearing a tinfoil hat is you're less likely to have myocarditis. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it has been a fascinating time. I lost my job, obviously, at Sky. Sky might tell you that it wasn't because of my views that I was airing on social media. I think we all know the truth. I certainly do. And so but as I said, I wouldn't change anything I did. I stood up for what I believed in. I believe there has been a lot of justification in some of the views that I was sharing many years ago. Nobody will ever apologise. Actually, I've had a couple of people that did actually come and apologise to me because they thought I was mad, and some of them were my family. But I had three friends who I played golf with who were all older than me, and they actually confided in me that they actually did think that I had gone a bit bonkers, and about 9 months after that, they both came to me and apologised and went, "We are really sorry. Given what's happened, given what we're seeing around us, you were right, and we're sorry. We did think you were mad, but actually, you knew what you were talking about, and we didn't know." And it's little conversations like that give me hope. That standing up for what you believe was the right thing to do. I had a conversation with Bob just earlier on where he was talking to me about his publishers, and he said that a couple of guys had his book publishers who weren't particularly a weight crowd, but a couple of them were fans of football and were fans of mine, and had actually been listening to what I was saying, and had actually got interested, and actually change their minds about the way things were happening. And so it's lovely to hear stories like that, because it means you are making a difference to people. Sometimes you put things out on social media and you don't know how far it reaches, you don't know who's seeing it. We know what goes on social media in terms of the suppression of the information, and so it's lovely to hear little stories like that. It's been a fascinating time. And the last time I came here, I kind of waffled a lot. And I said to Katie Jo just now, I said, would you mind if we did a little question and answer from the audience? Because sometimes I can speak and you might not hear what you want to hear. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask me, then feel free while I'm waffling, just put your hand up. And I can take questions from the floor, because I like everyone to be involved. I don't like standing here on a pedestal, because we're all as one, and so feel free to stick your hand up at any point if you want to ask a question. There's one gentleman right at the back there if you want to. You're curious about the meeting with the Premier League? It wasn't a meeting with the Premier League that I had. It was a meeting with the PFA, which was the Professional Footballers Association. So that was regarding the vaccines. When the rollout of the vaccine started, I started noticing when I was watching sport, which is what I do a lot. Sport's been my entire life. I don't really watch anything else on telly, certainly not the news. Yeah. And so while I was watching all these sporting events, and not just the football, I was noticing that there was a lot of sportsmen and women were collapsing on the field of play with heart issues. And it was something that I'd never really seen before. I spent 17 years as a professional footballer, and I can honestly tell you with my hand on my heart, I didn't see one athlete, one footballer in my time in 17 years who I played against, played with, trained with, which was 5 days a week for most of the year. I didn't see one issue with any player that had a heart problem. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing these things, and I was a little bit concerned that the PFA, who were meant to look after the welfare of the footballers, were completely ignoring the fact that this was happening, and that there was a massive increase in players collapsing on the field of play. And so I put out a tweet, and it said something along the lines of how many more people have to collapse on a field of play before the PFA start doing something about it. And I copied in the European Professional Footballers Association as well. And within about 10 minutes of putting this tweet out, I had a phone call. And the phone call was from a guy called Bobby Barnes. And Bobby had worked in the PFA. He'd got pretty high up in the PFA, and then he was pretty high up in the European, in the UEFA Footballers Association union. So 10 minutes after this tweet, Bobby rings me. And he said, all right, Matt. I said, oh, hi, Bob, how you doing? He said, yeah, I'm all right. He said, you know where I'm working now? And I went, no, you're not the PFA anymore. He said, no, I've moved to. And he went, just saw your tweet. I said, oh, that's good. He said, there's not been an increase. And I went, I'm sorry? He said, no. He said, you just didn't know about all the others that happened before. I said, hang on a minute, Bob. I said, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, me and you played about the same time. He's a couple of years older than me. I said, we played at the same time. I said, can you name me any players in our time that you saw suffer with a heart condition on a football pitch? And he waited, and I was waiting. And then he came up with a couple of names, which were both after we finished playing. Fabrice Muamba was one, Mark Vivian Foa is another one. And I said, I'll stop you there, Bob. I said, because I know when you retired. I said, Mark Vivian Foa was the year after I retired, and Fabrice Muamba was many years after we retired. I said, so I'll ask you the question again. During our time as professional footballers, how many did you see? And he went, none. And I went, pfft. I said, I'm not stupid, Bob. I said, you might want to try and cover this up. I said, but there's something happening. I said, and it's not just the players either. I said, have you seen the amount of medical emergencies that are going on in the crowds at football matches with games getting stopped? It was happening every week. I was working. I was listening to it. I was seeing it. And so eventually I managed to get a meeting with the FA to voice my concerns to the doctor at the FA. And backing me up on that phone call was, on the Zoom call, was Asim Malhotra. So Asim had also seen what was going on, and he had the same concerns as I did. And so we got on a call to the doctor at the FA, and the only reason we were allowed to have this call was because we had to agree that anything that was said during the Zoom call couldn't be made public. What have you got to hide? Was my question. And so we tried raising the alarm. The FA just ignored it. The PFA still ignore it today. However, not long after, the Football Association, the Premier League, stopped recommending their players to be jabbed again. So that... and I didn't know about this until the doctor at the FA, because what I didn't tell you is that after we had the Zoom call, whenever I then noticed another sportsman collapse on a pitch, I would just send an email to the doctor at the FA and go, there's another one, there's another one, and there's another one. And then eventually she wrote me an email back after about the sixth one I'd sent, and she just said, as you know, Premier League and the Football League are no longer recommending their players to have any more COVID jabs, which was news to me because they haven't told anyone publicly. They brought it in quietly. They never said anything to the public about it, yet they were very quick to tell everybody that 95% of professional footballers have all had their vaccines, trying to advertise it to the rest of the population. And I can tell you, I had 2 conversations with 2 professional footballers at 2 different Premier League clubs. Both of them, separate conversations, both of them told me that it was about 50% of their squads had had the jabs and nowhere near 95%. When was the conversation? So that's a very good question. So I think the email I received was November 23. As I said, dates and things I'll get the email up. Any more questions while I just search this email? I can tell you exactly what date it was. I'm sure I kept it. Mind you, somebody's probably deleted it off my phone for me. I won't get it because there's no reception. Love it. Yes. Because that was the last bit. Exactly. That's exactly right. We know it's rare because everybody remembers those issues, and they were such massive issues at the time. Now you see a player collapse on a football pitch, it gets about that much of a sentence at the end of a newspaper or whatever, and you just don't get to hear about it. Yes. A weird question, but no question's weird. I know Mike, yep. Yep. I had exactly the same situation. Yeah, I had a lot of support from people who were still working at Sky when I got sacked, and a lot of people saying that they fully agree with everything I'm saying, but I can't say anything because I need to keep my job. Um, which is exactly. If everybody just stood up and grew some balls, and obviously not the trans ladies. But if everybody stood up for what was right, you're absolutely right. This woke agenda would collapse in a heartbeat. So that is absolutely true. But yes, I did have a lot of people contact me privately, saying that they support what I did, and a little part of me kind of understands why they did it. But there's also a massive part of me that wants to go, mate, it's not the end of the world if you lose your job. There is other ways to earn money. You've got talents. You can go and use them. And there are people, who have the same opinions as us, who are in positions that are willing to, support you and give you jobs and things. So, Bob's found out that you can actually live without being in the mainstream media. I found out that you can live without being in the mainstream media. Obviously, on 50% less than what I was on before, but it don't matter. I don't care because I'm happy, and I've never really been materialistic in any way, shape, or form. So, as you can tell by the way I dress, Bob's a bit smarter than me. Yes. I think if enough people had come out, when it first started happening, it would have changed a heck of a lot. I really do, because I think eventually it was weight of numbers that actually started to make some change in the world when people started protesting, and they saw the numbers that were coming out at these protests, on the streets of London, and it was that I think was a major. And I went on one of the protests for the 100k NHS nurses who were just about to be sacked if they didn't take the jabs. And they saw the amount of people. I think that was on the Saturday, and on the Monday they reversed the decision. So it can be done, and if people are big enough and brave enough to stand up when it first happens, and there's enough of us, definitely people will back down, because it's like anything in life that they will try anything to bully you into submission. And I think we may have all experienced this. When you stand up to bullies, they normally back down because they're not used to resistance. And so, yeah, I think if enough people do it, then definitely it makes a difference. Yes, sir. That is a really good question. I haven't had that question before. Is there a conspiracy theorist that even other people might think has gone a bit too far? I don't. Listen, I've got a really open mind about a lot of stuff, and it's really weird, because if you have an open mind about things and you're non-committal, people try and label you with stuff anyway. So people have tried labeling at me, even though I've never ever said it. People are trying to label me and going, "Oh, you're a flat. You think the Earth's flat, don't you?" And I'm like, "What the fuck? I've never said that." I was actually asked the question on a podcast, "Is the Earth flat?" And I went, "I don't know," because I don't know. Like, I don't know whether it's flat or whether it's round. I mean, I don't know if we're spinning at 66 billion miles an hour. Piers, how many miles an hour are we spinning at, apparently? 1,000? 1,000 miles an hour? And lovely. Thank you very much. So basically, what we're when you're asking somebody if they think that, you can have an opinion on it, but who actually knows for sure 100% whether it is or not? So I was just being honest. I don't know. Right? that the Earth was round. That was a conspiracy theory. You're right. It was. And, I think we all have to have open minds about things. Unless you're 100% certain about something, which is incredibly rare. And it's going to be even rarer the more that AI gets its claws into things. You're going to start seeing pictures and things and people saying things on video, which is AI, that they've never ever said in their life. But you watch the video, you're not going to know any different. So they're blurring the lines between reality and the AI world, and it's a dangerous, dangerous place. I know Bob spoke a little bit about the AI. I find it incredibly dangerous, and I don't know if that's all part of the agenda to destabilize everybody and to make everybody think that we're in a dangerous world and the only people that can save us are our government and our politicians. Because fuck me, if that's the place you're going to get to, you're in a whole world of trouble. So I've read a lot. I don't know which ones are true, which ones aren't true. I've got my opinions, but it's very rare we'll know 100% one way or the other. So yeah, I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist now because a lot of them have come true about 6 months after I spoke about them. So I actually prefer the term conspiracy realist. Quite frankly, it's a lot more accurate. Yes, young lady.
In your industry, why do you think there's very few people who speak out? Do you think like they're money motivated, or they're just right? If their children have got to live in this digital world, why do you think like there's not people like you very courageous to speak out? If there's a lot of people like the Neville, one of the Neville brothers, he was asked the question about the drinking games, and he asked the guy, "Oh, you okay?" Being sarcastic. I think that's not quite a normal response to have. So why do you think some people? What's the reason for them not speaking out, being silent?
What's the reason for not speaking out? I think, yeah, I know. I don't get it. Quite frankly, I don't get it because I don't want to live in the world that they've got planned for us. I don't know if they just don't understand what is possibly coming down the line. I think that's probably one of the big things about it. Having said that, Gary Neville, strangely enough, when it all kicked off in kind of April 2020, and there were a few of us speaking out against the measures that were being put in place, we actually got a big WhatsApp group together of like-minded celebrities or people with a platform, and we had a WhatsApp group for support and everything. And Gary joined that WhatsApp group very early on. And he was there for about 2 days and he left. There was another interesting one actually who joined the WhatsApp group who left very soon after. And she had a very big following, and that was Davina McCall. Yeah. So I think, and I know that a lot of them were warned off of speaking about things by their agents because they were worried about future work. And obviously the agent is worried because if they lose work, the agent loses work. So the agent is putting pressure on the artist to shut the fuck up because he can see that he's going to lose his money. And that's how the system works, really. People who go, oh, it must be a conspiracy theorist. Everyone can't be in on it. Well, they don't have to be. It's just the people at the top who put pressure, downward pressure on the people below. And the people at the lower levels probably don't even know what they're doing. They're just order followers, and I think they're one of the most dangerous people on this planet. The people who just follow orders without questioning anything are going to get us into a lot of trouble. And I'd hope now, if something like that happened again, I think we'd definitely have a few more numbers, because I definitely believe in my heart that there's way more good people on this planet than there is bad. And we will eventually win. It might be a slow process and we're fighting every day, but I think we're actually in a much better position now than what we were intended to be in the agenda that they wanted. They were, I believe, from what I've read, they were looking at lockdowns for a massive, way longer period than they actually did. And we've, by protesting and the numbers that we managed to get together, I think we've definitely put the brakes on what they had planned for us. But they're still going, and we've got to still keep going. and we've got to grow our numbers. And as I said, there's way more good people on this planet than there is bad, and we will win. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's something that's something that yeah, no, I've had that a lot where people say, what can I do? I'm just one person. But what you don't understand is that if you're just one person doing a little bit and you get 7 billion other people on the planet doing the same thing, that's a hell of a momentum shift. So just do your bit. As one of Piers' favourite sayings, do not comply. It's the easiest thing to do. Do not comply to stupid rules. I came to the realization, and it was a horrible realization to come to, that on this planet I could see that there is a massive battle of good versus evil. There really is, and that was one of the things that kind of got me thinking. And then my mentor as a footballer was my youth team coach, a guy called Dave Merrington, who was a Christian himself, and a very vocal one. And he had a massive influence on my football career. We've always stayed in touch. And unfortunately, about 18 months ago, Dave's wife passed away. And I went to her funeral. And it was the Baptist church that Dave goes to in Totton, just outside Southampton. And I went to this funeral, went into the church for the service. And as I walked into the church, I had this... I had an overwhelming feeling just come over me as I walked in, of warmth and of love, and I had this overwhelming sense of, you belong here, you need to come here, and I had that as I walked into the church, and then I spoke with Dave about it. I then spoke with the pastor at the church, who coincidentally was a big Southampton fan, but that's got nothing to do with it. And I started going to church, and I actually spoke with Richard Vobes at a Truth Festival down in Dorset last year, and it was the first time. I hadn't planned to do that. I'd gone down. Richard was going to interview me. We didn't know where it was going to go, but we ended up talking about my journey into Christianity, and so it was the first time I'd ever spoken publicly about my decision. And it was really odd as I left. Obviously I went from Southampton down to this place. It was only about 30-minute drive. Sat nav takes you into the postcode and takes you into the festival. And as I left, I put my home address back into the sat nav, fully expecting the sat nav to take me the same way as I came. Logical. I've got a logical brain. But as I came out of the festival, it took me a different route. It turned me right out the festival instead of left, and I thought, well, that's really odd. And as I thought that, my sat nav went, please take the next right. And as I went to take the next right, I literally slammed the brakes on my car, because the road that I turned into, which wasn't the way that I should really have gone, was a road called God's Blessing Lane. And I literally stopped the car, and I had to take a photo of it, because people wouldn't believe me what was just happened to me, and that just a little thing that's kind of just reaffirmed that I've made the right decision, really. So that's not little, no, that's quite big. So yeah, that's been kind of my journey into Christianity. Yeah. Do I have the support of my family? Yes, mostly. Yeah. I mean, my wife's been very, very good, very supportive. I don't think she's quite as far down the rabbit hole as I am, but she has been incredibly supportive. And yeah, she's made my life. She's kept me sane over the last few years. So she's an absolute diamond, and I love it to bits. So yeah, she's been amazing. My children. My eldest daughter did take one jab. She lives back in Guernsey, and she was very concerned about the fact, in the height of all the nonsense, that she would never get to see me again because I wasn't going to get jabbed and I wouldn't have been allowed into Guernsey. So she thought the only way that she would ever get to see me again is if she took the vaccine. So she took one to come and see me, basically, and that's an interesting position to be in, because you want to go, you stupid idiot, what did you do that for? But I love you, you're here, and I haven't seen you for 18 months. So that's a really weird place to be in. But yes, on the whole, now my family, my extended family, are very supportive of everything that I've done. So yeah. Thank you. Yes, sir. He was. Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, Ricky Lambert would be in it. For those of you who don't know, Ricky was a former Southampton player as well. He's now retired. He's doing some coaching with Wigan Athletic in the youngsters. But Ricky has been pretty vocal the last couple of years. And ironically, he was also wore the number 7 shirt at Southampton. In fact, he's the only number 7 shirt. There's a lot of players that wore the number 7 shirt, which was my shirt. And he's the only one really that's kind of lived up to the number, if I should say that. And I was really proud when he started speaking out as well, and wasn't afraid to air his views and everything. So Ricky would definitely be in it. There's people like David Cottrell, who's played at Swansea for a while. I did a podcast with Dave. He's very much of the same opinions that we've got. So he would have to be in it. I'm then struggling with numbers with more footballers, because there hasn't been huge amounts of them that have come out. Trevor Sinclair was Trevor was brave enough to say something on TalkSport, and they tried sacking him, and he stood up for himself, took him to court, and they backed down. So fair play to Trev as well. I know Trev, and he's a good lad. But what TalkSport did to him is disgusting. Just for asking a question, just for could it be the vaccine that's making all these players? They were talking on there about a player that had collapsed on the pitch, and he asked the question, we need to know if, was he vaccinated? Is it the vaccine that's doing this? And it was only a question. He didn't even state that it was the vaccine. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things for me to witness in this country, where I thought we had free speech. We don't have free speech. We do not have free speech in this country, and it's really dangerous when a government and the media can just shut down your opinion and not allow any kind of debate on a subject. And it's a really horrible place to be. And you've got to be careful about what you say, because you can get your account suspended on social media and all that nonsense. So yeah, fair play to Trevor for actually on live on the radio actually asking that question. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for him. There are some very powerful people within the media who will only allow certain things to come out in the media, and that was obviously one of the banned subjects that you weren't allowed to talk about at any cost, because obviously there's a lot of money involved in the pharmaceutical industry. They want to protect their profits, and it just can't be questioned, which is absolutely wrong. It's the complete opposite of what science should really be, because science should always be open to be questioned. And if you haven't got anything to hide, why not allow it? Why not allow it? The only reason you censor people is because you've got something to hide, and we all know what that is that they're hiding, unfortunately. Yes, Katie. Oh, that's a good question. I think I've met most of them. It's been great. I know. I've had a great time the last few years meeting just some unbelievable people. Oh, who I would like to meet, who I haven't. Eric Clapton. Eric was obviously spoke about his vaccine injury and got obviously cancelled because of his opinions and bringing up the subject that you may not speak about. And I've never met Eric before, so that would be pretty cool to meet him. He's obviously a legend. So, but yeah, no, I've met some fabulous people in this movement, yourself included, and not just famous people. You know, there's some amazing people. Dolores Cahill, I would never have met. You know, what an amazing lady she is. You know, Dr. Tess Laurie, who Jake has painted. She was lovely lady who was just, I don't know. I've just met some great people, and just like you people in this room, they're just people who want the best for humanity, you know, and want people to be truthful and not fill us with propaganda shit from the mainstream media the whole time. I've lost a lot of respect for a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, a lot of police, a lot of the judiciary, and actually I didn't have any respect for politicians in the first place. Never liked them. I've always felt like I would be on the right side of history, even though I knew the flack that I was going to take. I think I understood that it would be only temporary, and it certainly reduced a hell of a lot from what it was. You know, I can put posts. You know, when I was first putting posts out on social media back in 2020, I mean, I was getting about 95% abuse in the replies. Comfortably 95%, and it's been fascinating to watch as the years gone on how that has literally flipped. I'm literally now 95% of people supporting, and just the occasional bit of abuse. You know, you can even talk about climate change now. Yeah. Even now, you know, you can talk about climate change now and the geoengineering stuff, and you know, you're not getting nearly as much abuse as you were when you were talking about it a few years ago. You know, people are starting to see it. You know, I'm getting loads of people, and I do it all the time now when I'm out with my mates, and I just go, oh, look at all those lines in the sky. What's going on there? I didn't see that when I was a kid. What's going on? And then we can have a beautiful morning, see all these lines in the sky, and then all of a sudden, about an hour later, it's blanket cloud. Featureless blanket cloud. And I was like, I don't even remember seeing that as a kid. Like, you'd have clouds, sure, and you'd have grey days, but there's always a little bit of something there. And now when I post about things like that now, you get very little pushback on it. So a lot of people know, and they're starting to admit to it, which is the telltale sign that you know you were right, because all of a sudden little bits of information are now starting coming out going, oh yeah, well, it went from, no, they don't do that, to now it's, oh yeah, we do it, but just a little bit. And we're just doing it because it's good for you. That's the next one. And so it's just like these stages of people revealing the information bit by bit, and eventually what you were saying 3 years ago is actually happening, and all that abuse that you took. I sometimes go back 3 years and look at some of the stuff I posted and see the replies to it, and then just go, and now it's all coming out now. I just go, just a little message to the bloke who was telling me I was a twat, because I just go, what do you think about it? I'll just post an article from a mainstream newspaper talking about geoengineering and go, what do you think about it now, mate? Piss off. Yes, young lady. Yeah, I mean, I think if it happened again, like they're trying with the bird flu, and all of a sudden we've bought a load of bird flu vaccines. Yeah, I'm not taking that either, mate. But I would be very surprised if it had the same amount of uptake next time round. I really would. I think people's eyes have been opened quite a lot these last few years, and as I said, I think there was about 50% of professional footballers before who did it. But I would imagine that number would go down a hell of a lot. I mean, there are some footballers that, I mean, they were never really considered the most intelligent people on the planet. And so yeah, there'll always be a few. Yeah, he's one of them jab pushers. Him. David Beckham. Yeah, sold his soul a long time ago, that one. But yeah, I would guess that it would be a much smaller number that would fall for it now, from the professional footballers that I spoke to and the ones that are in and around the game. So fingers crossed, because they will try again. Don't worry about that. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.